I arrive at Hannah's wedding reception alone, my heels clicking against the stone path winding through rows of meticulously tended grapevines. The setting sun bathes the Napa Valley hills in golden light, casting long shadows across what the guests around me keep calling absolutely breathtaking. The perfume of roses mingles with the earthy scent of wine barrels and freshly cut grass. Then I see him. My wineglass slips from my fingers and shatters on the stone path. The crimson liquid spatters across my beige pumps, but I barely notice. Grandpa Walter sits alone at a small table tucked behind the catering tents, next to stacked garbage bins. His weathered hands rest on a white tablecloth that looks dingy compared to the crisp linens adorning the other tables. At 84, the 8-hour flight from Vermont has clearly taken its toll. His shoulders slump with exhaustion while he watches the celebration from his isolated corner. "Emily, you made it." My mother Linda's voice rings with practiced warmth as she approaches a cluster of guests nearby. She doesn't look in my direction. "Yes," Walter insisted on coming, despite our concerns about his health. Her laugh tinkles like expensive crystal. "You know how stubborn the older generation can be." She pointedly avoids looking toward Grandpa's secluded table while her jewelry catches the fading sunlight. My mind flashes back 3 months to our family dinner. We sat around my parents' mahogany table while Grandpa regaled us with stories of building the vineyard decades ago. "Started with nothing but rocky soil everyone said wouldn't grow a weed," he'd said, eyes bright with memory. "Your grandmother and I slept in that old cabin the first 2 years, hauling water bucket by bucket until we could afford proper irrigation." Mother had cut him off with a wave of her manicured hand. "Dad, please. These embarrassing exaggerations make us sound like peasants. The Harrington name means something now." I'd spoken up quietly. "I'd like to hear more about those early days, Grandpa." Mother's gaze had turned frigid. "Always siding with the past instead of embracing our future, Emily." As Grandpa left that night, he'd winked at me, whispering, "Patience outlasts pride," before kissing my cheek. Now, watching him sit alone by the garbage while Hannah twirls in her designer gown under twinkling lights, something inside me snaps. I want to protect my grandfather from the rest of my family. I march toward my mother, intercepting her before she reaches another group of admirers. "Why is he sitting by the garbage?" I ask loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Mother's smile remains fixed, but her eyes narrow dangerously. "Not now, Emily," she hisses through clenched teeth. "Yes, now. That's your father sitting next to trash bins while everyone else enjoys the view." I deliberately raise my voice even more so that everyone can hear. She grips my arm, pulling me away from curious ears. "He insisted on coming. We didn't want him embarrassing the family with his outdated ways and frail condition. He's lucky we accommodated him at all." My hands have been trembling, but suddenly they stop. I straighten my spine, looking directly into her eyes. "He built something that lasted," I say clearly. "That deserves respect, not the seating arrangement in the garbage." The sound of the slap echoes across the stone terrace. Conversations halt. Music seems to fade. My cheek burns where my mother's hand struck it. "Security?" she calls, her voice steady despite the wild anger in her eyes. "Please escort my daughter out. She's causing a scene." 2 men in black suits materialize beside me. I don't resist as they gently but firmly guide me toward the exit. With each step, the weight of years of seeking approval lifts from my shoulders. I've spent my life trying to balance my love for Grandpa's vineyard traditions with my mother's obsession with social climbing. I've endured being the difficult daughter, the disappointment, the one who wouldn't play along. As the security guards walk me past clusters of whispering guests, a strange calm settles over me. The realization is both painful and freeing. They never saw me as family, just as an audience for their performance. I turn back once to see Grandpa watching me go, something like pride flickering across his weathered face. 10 minutes later, the sound hits me first. A distinct engine whine cutting through the evening air, unmistakable to anyone who spent time around private aviation. A Gulfstream G500. My step falters mid-stride toward the vineyard exit, fingers instinctively gripping a wooden post for support as my heart skips several beats. "Ma'am, are you all right?" One of the security guards asks, his hand hovering near my elbow without touching. I don't answer. My attention locks on the far entrance where a gleaming Rolls-Royce glides to a stop, flanked by 2 imposing black SUVs. The vehicles halt with military precision, their engines falling silent in perfect unison. When the Rolls door opens, my breath catches in my throat. Grandpa Walter steps out, his movements fluid and deliberate. Gone is the hunched, exhausted man from the garbage table. This grandpa stands tall, shoulders squared beneath an impeccably tailored suit. Two men in dark attire flank him discreetly, their earpieces and watchful posture marking them clearly as security personnel. That's impossible. I whisper, my mind racing to reconcile two wildly different versions of the same man existing mere minutes apart. The truth crashes through me like a wave breaking against rocks. For years, they've been lying to both of us, telling Grandpa I was too busy to visit while telling me he was too frail to travel. A systematic campaign of isolation disguised as concern. The wedding band stops mid-song as Grandpa Walter walks steadily toward the main reception tent. Conversations die. Wine glasses freeze halfway to parted lips. My mother's smile shatters like thin ice as she spots him approaching. A man I recognize as Mateo, the vineyard's longest-serving employee, steps forward from among the staff. Without a word, he hands Grandpa a microphone, his weathered face revealing nothing while the catering team quietly shifts positions to stand behind my grandfather. I apologize for interrupting the festivities. Grandpa's voice rings clear across the stunned gathering, but there seems to be some confusion about my health and this beautiful property. Father tugs at his collar while Mother's knuckles whiten around her champagne flute. First, I should congratulate Hannah and Jason. Grandpa nods toward my sister and her new husband. You selected a magnificent venue, though I admit I was surprised when you booked it through Harrington Legacy Holdings, my holding company. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Hannah's mouth falls open while Jason's eyes dart frantically toward the nearest exit. Yes, this venue has been in my portfolio for nearly a decade. Grandpa's tone remains conversational, but his eyes harden. What troubles me more is discovering that for years, my family has been systematically lying to both Emily and me about our relationship with each other. My throat tightens as decades of isolation suddenly make terrible sense. Every missed birthday, every Grandpa's too tired to talk moment, every Emily couldn't make it excuse. My rage grows bigger and bigger with every second passing. Across the tent, Hannah's perfect day crumbles around her. Several prestigious guests begin whispering, gathering purses and jackets. Father slips away, phone already pressed to his ear, undoubtedly attempting damage control. The social consequences unfold in real time, the carefully cultivated Harrington image of generational success fracturing under the weight of revealed deception. I should feel vindicated watching this collapse, but unexpected guilt washes through me instead. Hannah didn't deserve to have her wedding day destroyed, regardless of her complicity in our family's manipulations. Her tear-stained makeup and trembling hands pierce through my satisfaction, leaving something more complicated in its place. If I stand with Grandpa, I gain the only true family connection I've ever had, but at what cost? The wedding disintegrates around us as guests make polite but hasty departures. Each departure represents years of my parents' careful social climbing undone in minutes. Mateo appears at my elbow, pressing a leather portfolio into my hands. He kept these for you, he whispers, his voice barely audible over the murmuring crowd. Records of every time they excluded you while using your name to access his resources. The trust fund withdrawals supposedly for your education. The vineyard inspections they claimed you were conducting. My fingers tighten around the smooth leather as the weight of evidence presses against my palm. Years of manipulation documented in meticulous detail. The proof I never knew I needed and never wanted to see. As I stand there holding tangible evidence of years of deliberate deception, a question rises through the chaos of my thoughts. Should I expose everything immediately, creating a clean break but causing a public scandal, or handle this privately to minimize damage to innocent bystanders like the vineyard staff who depend on its reputation? Would revealing family secrets be justice or just another form of pain? What would you do when the truth finally comes at such a high cost? 10 minutes later, I duck behind a row of empty wine barrels as Hannah's wedding planner marches past, speaking urgently into her headset. The celebration continues despite my forced exit, music floating across the vineyard like nothing has happened. The bride is requesting immediate damage control. The planner barks. Tell everyone there's been a misunderstanding about family inheritance. Nothing more. My phone vibrates with a text from Mateo, our longest-serving vineyard worker. Your mother is talking to the Davidsons by the South Terrace. Something about your grandfather's health. As I want to check what they are talking about, I creep closer to the terrace, keeping to the shadows between grapevines. Mother stands surrounded by 3 couples in evening wear, her diamonds catching the last rays of sunset. Walter is experiencing cognitive decline, she says, her voice pitched for sympathy. Emily has been exploiting his confusion. She's always been difficult. The man beside her, Thomas Reynolds, I realize with a jolt, wine critic for Vineyard Monthly, pulls out his phone and begins typing notes. Fascinating family drama at the Harrington wedding, he mutters as he types. Matriarch claims elder abuse while excluding founder from celebration. Mother blanches, finally noticing his documentation. The vineyard's reputation hangs by a thread. I retreat toward the equipment shed where I know I can access the vineyard's computer network. When I try logging into our photo archive, my credentials are rejected. After 3 attempts, a message appears. Account deactivated 87 days ago. 3 months. Right after I defended Grandpa at dinner last time we were gathered at my parents' house. I try the marketing database next. Success. And there they are. Dozens of my photographs showcasing seasonal changes in the vineyard, sunset light filtering through autumn leaves, close-ups of the first tender buds each spring. All credited to Hannah Harrington's artistic eye for vineyard beauty. Years of my work, my perspective, my connection to this place, stolen. My throat tightens as I scroll through image after image. The pruning techniques I documented, the weather patterns I tracked, all presented as Hannah's profound understanding of wine country. They did the same to your documentation of soil composition testing, comes a voice behind me. Matteo stands in the doorway, his weathered face drawn with concern. When investors visited last fall, Miss Hannah presented your binder of soil samples as her own research project. How long has this been happening? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Years, Miss Emily. But some of us remember who was really here when the family was not. He hands me a small notebook. Carmen, Miguel, and I have been keeping records. Which family member actually visited, who learned the processes, who cared enough to know our names? I flip through pages of dates, observations, and signatures from longtime workers. A secret history of who truly tended the vineyard's heart while others claimed its face. Miss Emily. Matteo hesitates. Your grandfather is looking for you. I find Grandpa Walter standing at the edge of a small, walled garden tucked behind the original stone cottage. The space bursts with wild flowers and herbs, so different from the manicured landscape of the main grounds. Eleanor's garden, Grandpa says, taking my hand. Named for your grandmother. He leads me to a stone bench surrounded by rosemary and lavender. The evening air carries their mingled fragrance. Your grandmother always said you were the only one who ever noticed when the first buds appeared each spring, he says, voice thick with memory. While Hannah was practicing her social graces and your mother was planning parties, you were out with the workers, learning how things grow. Before I can respond, shouting erupts from the direction of the barrel room. We follow the sound, entering the cavernous stone space where family voices ricochet off ancient walls. This vineyard is our birthright. Mother shouts at Grandpa, her carefully constructed poise abandoned. We've modernized it, marketed it, made it relevant. I step forward. No, you've packaged it, I say quietly. The room falls silent as heads turn toward me. There's a difference between tending roots and selling their fruit. Hannah surges forward in a swirl of white satin. You're ruining my wedding day, she hisses. You've always been jealous that I was chosen to be the face of Harrington Vineyards. Chosen? I laugh, the sound hollow against stone walls. You mean you accepted the role without doing the work? Jason appears at Hannah's side, his tuxedo immaculate but his face flushed with alcohol. Name your price, he demands. What monetary settlement would end this embarrassment? Everyone has a number. The question clarifies everything. They see only asset value where I see living heritage. I'm not fighting for ownership but for honoring a legacy of creation over consumption. There isn't enough money in your trust fund, Jason, I reply. The room goes quiet as Matteo enters, followed by Carmen, Miguel, and Joseph, the vineyard's longest-serving employees. Miss Emily is the only one who learned how to test acidity levels properly. Carmen says, her voice firm despite her nervousness. She can identify grape varieties by leaf shape alone. Miguel nods. When frost threatened the North Slope 3 years ago, Miss Emily was the one who stayed all night with us, monitoring temperatures and running heaters. Joseph steps forward. I taught her how to prune when she was 12. By 15, she was better at it than me. Their words ripple through the gathered wedding guests. I notice several influential vineyard owners exchanging glances, reevaluating the family drama they're witnessing. One distinguished woman in her 70s nods appreciatively. The girl identified a phylloxera risk in my eastern field last year when she visited. Saved me half my crop. Later that evening, in the estate office, Grandpa and I pore over legal documents spread across his mahogany desk. They told me you weren't interested in running things, he says, indicating a stack of management plans. That you preferred your life in Chicago. I shake my head. They never asked me. You know things would have been different if they had, Grandpa. He slides a folder toward me. These are the management transfer papers Linda claimed I signed 3 years ago. Look at the signature. I examine the document carefully. This isn't your handwriting. A sharp knock interrupts us. The head of security enters, his expression grave. Sir, we have a situation. Mr. Jason Matthews was caught on camera entering the restricted fermentation room with an unidentified container. Grandpa's face hardens. Show us the footage now. I stand, feeling a strange calm settle over me. The battle for the vineyard's soul has moved beyond family drama to something far more sinister. 15 minutes later, I review the security footage for the third time, my finger hovering over the tablet screen as Jason enters the fermentation room. The timestamp reads 8:42 p.m., precisely when Hannah was cutting the wedding cake. My jaw tightens as I watch him pull a small container from his jacket pocket. There, I say, pointing to the screen where Grandpa Walter and his attorney can see clearly. He breaks the seal on tank 14 at 8:43, then moves to tanks 16 and 17 within the next 90 seconds. Grandpa leans forward, his weathered hands steady as he makes notes on a legal pad. And those contain? The Eleanor's Reserve batches. My voice comes out flat, controlled. Our highest value wine, and coincidentally, the only ones where I documented the fermentation process personally. The attorney, Mr. Dunham, removes his glasses and rubs the bridge of his nose. This transforms everything. We're no longer discussing a family disagreement about inheritance. This is product tampering, a criminal investigation. I click through to another camera angle, documenting each broken seal and potential contamination point. The red wine would hide whatever Jason added, at least initially. My stomach churns at the thought. I want proper evidence handling, I tell them, resisting the urge to storm across the property and confront Jason immediately. No shortcuts, even though every part of me wants to drag him out of that reception by his custom lapels. I made myself very clear. Grandpa touches my shoulder. Patience outlasts pride, remember? The intercom buzzes. Mateo's voice comes through, tense but professional. Miss Harrington, your mother is demanding a family-only meeting in the main tasting room. She says airing dirty laundry violates family values. A bitter laugh escapes me. Perfect timing. When we enter the tasting room, Linda stands with her arms crossed, Carl hovering nervously behind her. Hannah sits at the table, her wedding gown pooling around her chair. Jason stands with one hand on her shoulder, his face a mask of righteous indignation. This has gone far enough, Linda announces. Family matters stay within family. Interesting principle, I say, opening the leather portfolio Mateo gave me. Was it family values when you used my name on legal documents while excluding me from meetings? Or when you claimed my photographs for vineyard marketing while deleting my access to the family archives? I spread documents across the table, loan applications, promotional materials, even trust documents, all bearing my forged signature. Linda's face flushes. Those are confidential. We're confidential, Grandpa corrects. Now they're evidence. Jason steps forward, his wedding day confidence fraying at the edges. The security footage is clearly manipulated. Anyone familiar with digital systems knows how easily video can be altered. Mr. Dunham raises an eyebrow. Interesting you should mention the security system's technical specifications, Mr. Bradley. The vineyard uses a proprietary system with multiple secure servers, information not publicly available. Jason pales. Everyone knows modern security uses backups. Not our particular configuration, I say quietly. I helped install it last year during one of my irrelevant visits. Hannah's eyes dart between Jason and me, then down to his hands. She shifts her chair slightly away from him, the first physical distance I've seen between them all day. When I see the look of betrayal on Hannah's face as she realizes Jason had been willing to destroy our family legacy just to maintain their social standing, I wonder, was there still room for reconciliation with my sister? Or had some family bridges been permanently burned? A commotion outside breaks the tense silence. Through the window, I see Matteo directing staff to secure the production areas. Workers in vineyard uniforms form a human chain, checking each tank and barrel room methodically. The staff have verified no contamination spread beyond the initial tanks. Matteo reports, stepping into the room. We've isolated all potentially affected product. Mr. Dunham removes another document from his briefcase and places it before Linda. This might interest you, Mrs. Harrington. It's notification that Emily has been the legal heir to the Vineyard Trust for 2 years. The original was sent certified mail to your home address. Linda's carefully composed face shows a flicker of panic. The notification you apparently intercepted, Grandpa adds, voice low but carrying across the room. The murmur of voices grows louder. Wedding guests in the courtyard watching this family drama unfold. Not the scandal they expected, but truth instead. The distinctive siren of the sheriff's department wails in the distance, growing closer. You called the police? Carl finally speaks, his voice cracking. Over a family disagreement? I didn't, I answer. Security protocols triggered an automatic alert when product tampering was detected. Carl looks at Linda, then back at me. I knew she hid documents from you. The words tumble out after years of silence. The trust notification, invitations to board meetings, even your grandmother's letters. Linda whirls to face him. Carl! Through the windows, I see wedding guests discreetly gathering their belongings, making polite excuses to the catering staff. Linda's carefully cultivated social network fragments in real time. Grandpa rises slowly from his chair. I think it's time I address the remaining guests and staff regarding the vineyard's future, don't you? The setting sun catches the crystal wineglass in his hand, casting prism-like reflections across the room, fragments of light illuminating truths hidden too long in shadow. 10 minutes later, after all the mess they created, Linda corners me near the tasting room entrance, her designer suit wrinkled for the first time in memory. Her perfectly manicured hands shake slightly as she grips my elbow. Emily, be reasonable. Her voice carries none of its usual authority. We can share ownership with Hannah. Keep this in the family without embarrassing legal proceedings. Behind her, Carl hovers by the vintage Cabernet display, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand nervously adjusting his collar. Through the window, I spot Hannah sitting alone on a stone bench, mascara streaking her cheeks as she scrolls through flight options on her phone. I could contest Walter's competency in court. Linda continues, desperation edging into her tone. You know how these things drag out for years. Jason appears at her side, his wedding boutonniere wilted. I was just following family wishes. He insists, eyes darting toward the security team standing with Grandpa. Your mother made decisions she thought best for everyone. I take a deep breath, feeling strangely calm. For years, I've prepared for this moment without knowing it would come. I've been taking viticulture courses for 8 years. I say, opening my leather portfolio. Online classes at first, then weekend intensives whenever I told you I was working late in Chicago. Linda's perfectly arched eyebrows rise as I spread out certification documents across the antique sideboard. Next come my journals, dozens of them, filled with detailed notes on seasonal changes, soil composition, and harvest timing dating back to my high school years. You thought I was taking photographs as a hobby? I continue, turning pages filled with technical diagrams and weather pattern analyses. I was documenting everything about this place that matters. Grandpa Walter approaches, carrying a weathered tin box. Found this right where Eleanor said you would, he says, placing it in my hands, under the old rose trellis in her garden. Inside lies a collection of handwritten plans for vineyard expansion, my grandmother's flowing script detailing slopes and sun exposures, with notes in the margins. Eastern slope for Emily's ideas, the only one who asks about the soil. Emily was the only one who visited me in Vermont after your mother passed. Grandpa says to Linda, his voice gentle but firm, every month, without fail, while you were too busy running what you thought would soon be yours. I meet my mother's gaze directly. I don't want to own the vineyard because it's valuable. I want to continue it because it's valuable to me. The remaining wedding guests and vineyard staff have gathered in the grand tasting room. Crystal glasses catch the late afternoon light, casting rainbow patterns across white oak barrels. The room falls silent as Grandpa takes his place at the center, his weathered hand steady on my shoulder. Today we're announcing the launch of a new label, he says, voice carrying to every corner. Eleanor's Bloom, dedicated to Emily's vision for our vineyard's future. Linda pushes forward, mouth opening to interrupt, but falls silent when every face in the room turns toward Grandpa and me, their attention absolute. I unfold the original blueprint of the vineyard, yellowed with age but preserved with care. My grandmother drew this 60 years ago. I explain, pointing to the eastern slope. See her handwriting here? Saving this section for Emily's ideas. She knew before I did. A longtime customer, Mrs. Delacourt, who's purchased our reserve Cabernet every year since before I was born, raises her glass. I remember when Emily showed me the new irrigation system 5 summers ago. The family was unavailable that weekend, too. Other voices join in, customers recalling vineyard tours I'd given while my family attended charity galas, sommeliers mentioning suggestions I'd made that improved vintages, workers sharing stories of pre-dawn harvests where I worked alongside them while Hannah slept off parties. Grandpa lifts his glass, the ruby liquid catching the light. "This vineyard doesn't belong to me anymore," he announces, voice strong despite his years. "It belongs to Emily not because of blood, but because of love." Near the entrance, security discreetly escorts Jason toward the parking lot, where the county sheriff waits beside his patrol car, evidence bags visible through the window. The product tampering investigation has officially begun. The gathering begins to disperse in small, murmuring groups. Some approach to congratulate me, others avoid eye contact as they slip away. Linda and Carl have already disappeared, their luxury sedan kicking up dust on the main drive. From across the room, I notice a solitary figure standing apart from the remaining guests. Hannah remains near the terrace doors, caught in the space between retreating with our parents and staying to face what comes next. As our eyes meet, tears begin streaming down her face. Her shoulders straighten, and she takes one hesitant step in my direction, then another. I wonder what words will follow her tears, yet I don't care anymore. In 6 months, I will protect all my grandpa has been building all his life. I stand tall among the neat rows of vines, my voice carrying confidently across the attentive group of industry experts gathered before me. 6 months have transformed both this vineyard and myself. The eastern slope receives morning sun but afternoon shade from those hills, I explain, pointing toward the ridgeline. We've incorporated sustainable irrigation that reduces water usage by 30% while improving yield quality. The wine critics and industry journalists scribble notes, their expressions thoughtful rather than skeptical. No longer do I shrink into corners at these gatherings. Now I command the center, sharing innovations that have earned Eleanor's Bloom 3 regional recognitions in half a year. "Miss Harrington," calls a reporter from Wine Enthusiast, "your sustainable approach seems to honor traditional methods while embracing modern science. Was that intentional?" I smile, noticing my photograph prominently displayed on the latest regional wine publication. Someone carries my name correctly credited beneath an image of sunrise over the vines. How different from when Hannah's face graced every marketing material, claiming credit for work she never did. The best vineyards. I answer, are conversations between past wisdom and future potential. Later that evening, lamplight warms the renovated dining room as we gather around the restored oak table, the same one where, months ago, Mother silenced Grandpa's stories of building this place from nothing. The difference now feels almost surreal. Grandpa Walter sits at the head of the table, his weathered hands steady as he raises a glass of our newest vintage. Mateo and our core staff of 7 fill the remaining seats. The mahogany gleams beneath plates of locally sourced food prepared by our new chef. The Peterson account doubled their order after tasting the reserve Cabernet. I say, the words flowing naturally. But that wouldn't have happened without Rosa improving our fermentation timing. Her insight made all the difference. Rosa, our cellar master who my parents barely acknowledged for 20 years, blushes at the recognition. Grandpa catches my eye with quiet approval. I've learned what he always knew: true leadership means celebrating others rather than claiming every success as personal triumph. After dinner, Mateo uncorks a special bottle as our small gathering moves to the stone patio overlooking the valley. Stars puncture the indigo sky while crickets provide nature's soundtrack. To roots that withstand storms, Mateo toasts, raising his glass toward the newly completed garden I've established in Grandma Eleanor's memory. Stone pathways wind through native plants and heritage roses she once tended, creating a sanctuary that honors her vision while adding my own touch. We clink glasses, this loyal group who stood beside me when everything threatened to collapse. Their faith proved stronger than family obligation. their integrity more valuable than social standing. The next morning, Grandpa and I walk the vineyard at sunrise, reviewing expansion plans for the northern section. His footsteps are steadier now that he's living here permanently, freed from the isolation my parents imposed. Hannah called yesterday, he mentions casually, asked if she might visit next weekend. I nod, neither excited nor resentful. Our relationship rebuilds slowly, one honest conversation at a time. Unlike mother and father, whose absence speaks volumes about priorities unchanged, Hannah has begun to recognize the damage done. The guest book filled another page yesterday, I tell him. More signatures in 6 months than the previous 3 years combined. As evening falls, I climb alone to the highest point of our property. The sunset paints the valley in amber and gold while shadows lengthen across what is now truly mine. From my pocket, I withdraw the faded photograph of Grandma Eleanor standing among newly planted vines 50 years ago, her expression reflecting the same determined hope I now feel. As I stand there watching the sun set over what was now truly mine, I wonder, is preserving a legacy about keeping things the same? Or about having the courage to let them grow in new directions while honoring their roots? What would you protect, and what would you allow to change?